Hi everyone, my name is Maor. Welcome to my YouTube channel. This channel is dedicated for those that are working on their spiritual awakening. Is money evil? Now, the question you should ask yourself is, do you want more money? And of course, everybody wants more money. And then the spiritual ego comes in and says, but you don't really need a lot of money. Now, where does that belief come from? I had a very bad experience with money. I still do sometimes. I lost everything twice. All my savings, everything that I had in my checkings. I was conned by con artists. I was manipulated by a friend. And I can tell you, like, the origin of all of this is that the really wealthy people in the world use their money sometimes out of control, manipulation, and greed. And us, the collective, the light workers, we perceive them, and then we have a negative limiting belief that money equals corruption. And in some way, our subconscious tells us that it's better to not have any and that money is evil. Actually, statistically, by the way, they found out that almost 90% of all $100 bills have some residence of cocaine on them. This was a scientific study that they did in New York, but they duplicated it in many, many different countries in the world. So technically, money is dirty in some way. So where does that core belief come from? This is what I want to talk about, and this is what I want to share with you in this particular video. I want to really thank you guys for watching me, for supporting the content. I get a lot of interesting questions, and really you guys are guiding me to the subjects and the titles and the different videos that you want to hear by telling me, by commenting, by questioning, by letting me think from a different perspective about different things. So is money evil? Yes and no. Money in the right hands can be really evil. Money for the people that are actually donating a lot, money for people that are using it to change the world. But what is your limiting belief when it comes to money? I can tell you that my own struggles were that I trust everyone. And in other words, when somebody comes and sells something to me, because I'm so connected to the inner child, and the inner child is really believing anything that people tell him, and he jumps on everything, and he sees so much optimism and positivity that any investment opportunity suddenly becomes something like, whoa, that sounds really good, and the way that they explain it. It's so bad, and it was so bad, and it hurt me so bad, that now every investment I make, or anytime I want to spend a larger amount or a larger sum of money, it has to go through my wife, and it has to go through one of my best friends, because both of them saw the different investments that I made, saw the different business decisions that I make, and told me, Ray, you have to filter this through us from now on. And I agree. I completely agree. This is the mechanism that we use now. But to get there, it was very difficult. In other words, I lost everything a few times. And I'm talking about I lost everything. It wasn't necessarily my fault, but it was my relationship with money and with emotion. Because I didn't really want to admit different emotional aspects of myself. I was a very mental person before that, and I didn't want to admit that there were some difficulties that have to do with emotional baggage that I'm still carrying on. And because I'm such a wonderful manifester, and because I believe that a spiritual advocate and anybody that is working on spirituality in their incarnation here have something to do with money as well. In other words, what we do here, why we decided to ground ourselves into the 3D existence, is not only to remember who we truly are, our unlimited self. I mean, we came here for this type of holiday, which is also a struggle, but it is a part of our life. So money is a part of what the system has right now. In other words, a job, donations, volunteering, your time is also worth money, the presents that you give to your friends, the present that you give yourself, your lifestyle, which directly impacts your decision making, and of course your spiritual and personal development. Because when things are more comfortable for you, then you have more time for yourself. When you have more time for yourself, the mind doesn't think as much, the ego doesn't impact as much your decisions. In other words, when you are very, very comfortable, you become more awakened. Now, the reason that we think that money is manipulative, the reason that we have this subconscious belief, and the reason why we don't have more, and again, we can have more. I used to not have a lot, and now I'm very, very abundant, and everything just works out easily for me. No struggle, in other words. No path of resistance, in other words. But what is the core belief? Is the core belief that less is more? Is the core belief that I don't believe I deserve a lot? Or I would prefer to go to Bolivia than I would do to go to Hawaii because I can't have and I don't have enough to spend. In other words, are you telling the universe, are you vibrating in a frequency that is not abundant? Are you cheap? Are you not spending enough? When you open your wallet, do you see lots of big bills or do you see a lot of change? And do you always go to the ATM because you don't want to carry more than $100 with you and stuff like that? All these things influence the vibration, the intention, the belief system that you have about abundance and about material abundance, which is money. And by the way, I'm just now finishing my second book. My first book was about the first year of my breatharian path, and the second book now is about the culmination, about balancing the material world with the spiritual desires. In other words, it is about putting them both together, understanding that the ego wants some things that are more materialistic, but the spiritual ego resists it. And all the purpose of this video is to talk about why we manipulate our own belief system and why we lack. Because a lot of us light workers, we're living in a state that is not abundant. We're living in a state that we think that money is evil in some way, and therefore we are resisting it and we are pushing it away. And once we find this out, once we have an aha moment, we have a realization that that is what we're doing, this is when the whole story begins. And this is where the whole story began with me as well. You see, I was born into, I wouldn't say poverty, but I would definitely not say wealth. Because, well, my mother simply had 2 jobs. My father, my biological father, left when I was very, very young. One of my mother's jobs was being a school teacher, so you can understand that we didn't really have a lot. And that made me traumatized. That pretty much, you know, the different experiences I had as a child were that I always got, I didn't get the things that other kids got. I always saw what I can have but couldn't have, and stuff like that. It kind of made me miserable because as a child you really want to get like the gifts, the type of gifts that other kids get, and you want to get a bicycle that actually you can drive them more than a month before they break apart, and because you continuously compare yourself to others. And I assume kids today it's even worse. Because we're digging our own hole of material possession and we compare ourselves according to our phone, according to the car, according to our partners, according to our apartment and stuff like that. So when I was a child, it was a little bit more difficult, and that is where it always starts. Now, when I teach, the first things we teach are always mental manifestation workshops way before we begin with anything that has to do with breathing techniques and bringing in more energy from the outside. It's always about the mental, because our belief system about what we are capable of, and you've heard this in many, many different ways, and now you're hearing it again from me from a different perspective that is a little bit more spiritual. Everything that comes through our manifestation abilities has to come from our beliefs about ourselves and our intention. And when we connect ourselves to our beliefs, we can drill down to the roots of where our limiting beliefs come from. So when I'm talking about wealthy people, and when I'm talking about people that are in control, what is the first thought that comes to your mind? The first thought that comes to your mind sometimes is that you're judging them, is that you're not sending them actual love, is that you are in some way afraid of becoming like them. You understand? It's hard to believe that we have a subconscious fear of having more, because we think it will redefine who we are. We will think that it might change our friends, we will think it might change our job, and then the ego comes in and kicks in that fear of change in some way. So, answer to yourself, is money evil for you? What do you think about wealthy people? What do you think about people in power? Can you take examples of people that are actually doing good with that? And how would you feel if the money of the world was in the hands of the light workers such as yourself? And what type of struggles do you have with money right now? There's something I see with a lot of my students when we're talking about manifestation of abundance. And those are those things that I mentioned, you know, the less is more, this belief system, and money is the source of all evil, and money doesn't flow because people are holding on to it, so it's like an energy. You have to spend more on yourself and on people that you love in order to have more sources of income or a surprise, because synchronicity works exactly that way. So, but one of the things that we see is that the more a person has, the more they define themselves by what they have. In other words, they define themselves by their material possession. I notice this a lot in conversations with people that have a lot, because what they will show you is how successful they are. So it's not only that the ego wants a recognition, is that the ego wants a recognition by the belief system of everybody else that is defining people by their success, by their car, by how beautiful their kids are, by everything like that, which is always external. And these people hang on to it much more. So if they had a definition of who they truly are when they were 15, 20, 25 and younger, today they define themselves by their money. And therefore, it's really hard for them to lose. It's really hard for them to understand that maybe there is more than other than that. Now, what we do in the different workshops that I teach is, first, we talk about the mental. In other words, we're talking about the logic, we're talking about the belief system, we're talking about abundance, everything that has to do with abundance, way before we actually begin with the meditations and the breathing techniques and everything like that. Because the mind is the most powerful thing, and it dictates everything else to the other bodies. So a belief will dictate the emotional body and how he should react to an external circumstance, for example. And a lot of people, a lot of spiritual advocates, a lot of light workers, just like yourself, when they come to the workshop, sometimes before, they ask for a discount, they ask for installments and stuff like that, only because, they assume that they can't afford something that is a little bit more expensive for themselves and give themselves an amazing gift of a unique spiritual experience and stuff like that. So we're always trying to get anything we can at a cheaper price, instead of sometimes understanding that the things that cost more, the camera that costs more, the speaker that costs more, the laptop that costs more, are much better for us. And sometimes we should just spoil ourselves. And you will notice that a person that continuously spoils himself, meaning he changes his belief system about what he is worth, will actually gain more, will actually get more. And when we raise our standards, it's way beyond the I want, it is way beyond the I need. It is, this is my new self. It is a state of knowingness, which is different than a belief. When I know something, I know I deserve more. I know I can get more. I believe in myself. It's not just a repetitive affirmation. It becomes a part of who we are. Now, when I had these struggles, I didn't really realize that I'm making a lot, and then I'm losing everything. And then I'm making a lot, and then I'm losing everything. And it was depressing. It was depressing because I didn't know the root of the problem. And the root of the problem with me was more emotional. And it was about trusting too many people that I probably shouldn't trust, and not seeing the signs that spirit is leaving me, and the signs that that my guides are actually showing me about different people by listening to my intuition. And when I changed that, and I started realizing that I don't need to be working for somebody, I can work for myself, and I'll have more free time, and then I'll raise my vibration, and then synchronicity in life will show me different things that I need to do, or make me meet the right people, make me create the external circumstances that I need to go through much faster than others. And then, of course, abundance and money, it all came flying in much faster. And for me, my path has profoundly changed in the way I perceive. And you know something? I meet more and more light workers that have made this change. This, I would even call this the leap of faith, the leap in the belief system. Because a lot of us are struggling, and then we're looking for that discount, and we're looking for the things that are cheaper, and we're not spoiling ourselves in some way. And you think that you don't have enough, but you do have enough. Only this thought creates that reality that we don't have enough. And I can tell you that I'm living my dream. And because I'm living my dream, the vibration is really, really high, and I follow the point of excitement, and I don't overthink it. I'm teaching in the most wonderful places in the world. I go abroad every month and a half, and I meet amazing light workers, and I help them transcend their limiting beliefs about abundance, about food, about limitations. So everything kind of comes together eventually. But it's up to you to make that leap, It's a decision. It begins with the intention of making that change. You don't have to do anything, okay? You can completely relax. It will happen naturally anyway. You're not going to die of starvation, being a lonely old person, Everything begins with the intention. So make the intention of making that change. Understand that money in the right hands, which is your hands or light workers' hands, is a good thing. Okay, it's something that you are going to use for the better. For example, I donate 5% of all the income that I get to a few causes. One of those causes is to save women that are kidnapped as young women and abused sexually and taken away from their families, and the cause actually returns them to the family and rehabilitates them. So when you use your money in the right way, and when the money is in the right hands of the world, we can really make a change. So my friends, thank you very much for giving me your time and attention. I would love to hear any comment that you have about your experience with abundance, about why you have certain limiting beliefs. And just ask me any questions. And of course, if you have any subject that you want me to discuss, simply write down in the comment section and I'll be happy to address it if enough people will be interested. So again, thank you very much for watching me and for your time. Namaste, and I will see you in the next video.